processes. And so to be a bodhisattva, or to have that kind of acceptance, can only happen naturally, not by force. Forcing, of course, now to focus on that part of focusing or doing it consciously, of course, the benefit of it is that the obvious, or I don't know whether to call it obvious or non-obvious, is that by trying to do it consciously, initially it satisfies the sort of very surface level of our emotion, which is to somehow feel that we are not being lazy, we are trying to do something, we are trying to accomplish something. And so therefore we get a sense of satisfaction, and through that we get motivation to do more and more. But if we say, or ask ourselves, is it just that? Obviously it isn't, because if we just based ourselves on that, at some point we're liable to experience burnout of various sorts. So therefore, as we pass through the surface and go deeper, then we realize that it's not just about sort of gaining that satisfaction, but that feeling of satisfaction was just to motivate ourselves. That as we come closer and closer to the core, then we realize that the idea of right and wrong, black and white, or all of these things sort of slowly disappear, or not really disappear, but somehow disappear in a sense that you just simply cannot point out exactly what is right or wrong, because they seem to be almost completely interdependent to each other. And so therefore we really cannot point a finger at it and say it is like this. And so therefore in some ways to digest that fact, it requires immense courage, immense patience. So therefore in the beginning of this year we were trying to talk about the paramita of patience in the Bodhicaya Avatara, and in other words, it's just basically talking about patience. Patience to be able to actually digest the fact that there is nothing absolutely right or wrong. But of course, if you keep talking about that, again, it's possible that we may become completely or even more obscured and even more sort of insane. But it's not to say that we have no choice, but if you wish to go forward, if you wish to understand what meditation is about, it requires for us to be able to somehow or to try to find a way to digest these facts. That's why the last time I said that the very air we breathe, that we inhale and exhale through these processes, of course, on some level or on some pattern, obviously there is some form of harm taking place. You know, the idea of harm is taking place, that we are living on a micro or whatever form of life, and to be able to sustain this particular sort of very solid form of physical body. And so therefore, how can we accept that? Because we are supposed to be vegetarian, we are supposed to be non-harming and so on. So how do we sort of justify that, you know? Is there a law or universal law that to say that this is justified, just as how you have felt for, I don't know, for however long, that that the animals, the obvious forms of species such as animals, can be treated in such a way, and beyond that, then it's known as this sort of civilized organization. So if you think in terms like that, in very sort of subtle form of organization, then it's impossible to actually understand what is right or wrong. So it's from that point of view, it's difficult to really identify and to recognize and say that enlightenment is or was possible, you know. So therefore, the purpose of our meditation is to really find immense acceptance or courage, not in a sort of crude sense and dark sense where the world is dark, no matter what we do, that we will never get it right, and so therefore we just have to sort of accept it. Not in that sense, but the idea of here and now, that although this almost eternal-like process of birth, or prior to that, rebirth, then birth, aging, falling ill, dying, and so on, that they are almost eternal, but nevertheless that there was, or there is, a way to accept that this is how it is in the conditional world. Yet the here and now is that right here, right now, with the conditions that are present right in front of me, how much actually I'm able to, how to say, not to say make a mark, but how to say to, well, of course, in the most common word, help or support. Because right here and right now, in this sort of pattern, then there may be countless of others, or there may be one, or there may be countless, who are facing, probably in their sense or in our sense, the most difficult time of their life or our life. And so in order to somehow make sense, put sense, to say that it's okay, it's all right, all will be well, that this is not the end, whatever, you know. Someone may be dying, someone may be falling immensely ill, someone may be not be able to accept the changes, which is aging, yes. That is the most difficult thing to accept, that it's changing, that the friends have turned into enemies, or my enemies have become friends with whatever, you know. So whatever forms of change, that the wealth have turned into poison, all sorts of things. That here, within that here and the now, that you were able to make a change, that you were able to make a difference. Probably that's one of the purpose of the meditation. And so, of course, it begins for ourselves, of course, because we believe that for the fact that we are here, that we believe that that we are the ones, so to speak, to make the change or to be the change. And so therefore we are acquired or required to find a way to meditate, to find a way to generate that kind of courage. And consciously, of course, the only way to do that is to try to stop thinking. It's like saying, in some ways, try to stop breathing, in a way. That's why I said that probably none of the countless of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that have been there in the past may not have reached enlightenment in this way, because I'm sure, or all of us can be very, very sure that they all have tried to stop breathing, but somehow they understood that you have to breathe. You have to inhale, obviously, but at the same time you have to exhale. There is no other way. So this is exactly why we are here. So that's why during our meditation lots of other means and methods are applied, but the most basic core form of meditation is breathing, of course. That's why we base and the most preliminary form of meditation on breathing, the practice of Tonglen, let's say, is because through that then we either consciously or unconsciously realize that there is no other way around breathing, that you have to breathe. And so therefore hopefully through some form of forceful means that we will be able to get in touch with the most natural state of our life. That whether we spend half an hour here or an hour here, that during that stage or time, the idea of time, that we will be able to somehow consciously relate to the idea of change, to the idea that within those 30 to 60 minutes that we are aging, that we are dying, that we are simultaneously being born and so on, So I think that's probably a rough aim. And of course the benefit of repeating the same practice or formula is that we give ourselves, in a conditioned or conceptual sense, we give ourselves more and more chance to actually relate to that idea. Relate, or in other words, not just to say relate, but find a way to, it's like, I don't know how to put it, but it's like saying, sort of entering into that current, entering into that sort of cycle. So it is with that aim that we once again now we will meditate, and I hope that we will make the best use of our time. I apologize that there were not much humorous moments. The thing is, I would actually I'm more comfortable if during the meditation if I could interrupt you, because the meditation has to happen sort of course, the few other words that I didn't mention is it has to happen spontaneously. So therefore, till now, what I've said is a very sort of mechanical way of talking about meditation, whereas the actual meditation has to happen almost in a way as if an sort of accident took place. Meaning that although there is a formality, that there is a setting, there is place, that there is lecturer, and at the same time someone who follows that lecture and so on, but nevertheless normally it has to happen almost like an accident. And so therefore if there is a good teacher, then that teacher has to go through various accidents to be able to repeat that accident, sort of, so to speak, during the practice in a way. And so therefore, a much more proper way of meditation could actually take place if there is constant interruption. It could be the weather, or it could be anything. And so therefore, preferably, I would prefer to interrupt you during your meditation. But nevertheless, we are in a traditional setting, and so therefore, it's that there is the benefit to follow the rhythm of it. But beside my let's say interruption, if should there be any form of interruption during the meditation, it's healthy and important to take those interruptions, if possible, in the most healthiest of ways. For example, a bad news just came, or just appeared on your mobile phone in the form of a message or something, or suddenly you feel physically ill, or I don't know, the position of your posture is such that it's causing a fair amount of pain, or that you simply dozed off during the meditation and you just jolted out of that slumber out of, let's say, embarrassment, anything that, any kind of occurrence or interruptions. If you pay enough attention to those, that they have the potency to actually generate real, natural meditation. And of course, in other words, the meditation is none other than, to repeat once again, is non-verbal and non-conceptual, or are not involved in thinking. So not forced, not in any way forced. Yes, that it's supposed to take place very naturally. Normally, a moment of frustration, a moment of pure anger or pure sadness can be actually taken as a very good form of meditation. But of course, for that, for a practitioner to take that kind of state, or to recognize that state as a meditation, of course, it takes some doing, takes some practice, or takes some doing in terms of to have good surroundings, good support system to help you realize that was the case. But otherwise, yes, that those are the most purest moments, the most genuine moments. And so what we are trying to create or recreate here is a very genuine moment, nothing artificial. But not to say it's not artificial to force it, you know. Otherwise, again, we stepped out of the boundaries. So therefore, it's a delicate one. It takes courage, and the last thing I want to say is that not to fear that that there is any repercussion should you fail it. That has to be completely cast aside. Particularly in this sort of condition, if you happen to cough, yes, then don't feel uncomfortable at all. As I said, I think I used to say this from time to time. Should you feel an itch, then in your throat, cough wholeheartedly. Because the more you try to hold it, the worse it gets. So yes, so now let's meditate and let's follow the words, the practice according to its merit. I like to use that word, according to its merit. Because we don't exactly know how we are supposed to read, how we are supposed to chant, how we are supposed to meditate, but we somehow follow the rhythm of others, you know. So according to the merit, we